Her. Right. So have we all had a lovely week? Yeah.
Hectic
Hectic? Okay.
and wet. It was pouring rain here yesterday.
Oh, was it? It's pouring now. Did you watch last week's class, Pam? Did you manage to catch
Oh,
up on last week's? You haven't.
no, I've had Nana duty or Nana fun all week.
Oh, fun. All right. Well, we're diving into part three of philosophy and the foundations of Ayurveda today. Um, so we will be getting into that very shortly. I know I said that Jasmine will be teaching the class today, but it's actually Jasmine's birthday. So happy birthday to Jasmine from all of us. We didn't want to make her work too hard on her birthday, so she's going to take over some of my philosophy, no, pathology classes.
Yeah.
Anyway, did any questions come up for anyone over the last week or two since starting the philosophy?
Only the fact this is so huge and exciting, Harmony. There's so much to I guess unpack and repack and memorize. So any hints I would love.
Yeah, there is many.
Loving it, but it's huge.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, you can do a whole degree just in Ayurvedic philosophy on
Oh,
its own. It is huge, but it is sort of the foundation. It's so important to
yeah,
learn and understand. I absolutely, yeah, I love philosophy because it's such a different way of thinking to how we're used to, and it really challenged your mind. And I think that's what I love
did.
so much about it. Yeah, Danny, did you have a question?
Yes, I did have a question. I love the philosophy too. It's amazing, and I reckon I'll be going back and rewatching this many of times just to really integrate, like, because there's so much behind it all. But I did have a question pop up when I was watching the replay of last week's when you were going into the sense organs.
Mhm.
Um, I was like, I was mapping over how like we have practices for the sense organs, but
Mhm.
I I was like, oh, what about the ears? And we didn't really touch on specifically like this like is a practice for or part of dinatari for the ears, but I sort of thought, well, maybe like silence, sitting in silence would be a practice for the ears, but I'd love to know from you guys what would be a practice to, yeah, for
Yeah,
the ears.
absolutely. So yeah, silence is a good practice. Sound healing is also a wonderful practice, which is the opposite to silence. But we do
Yeah,
do oleation of the ears as well. So similar to nausea, we
yeah,
can also do that for the ears. I had not that long ago, for some reason, I was just getting the worst. It's that tinnitus without a sound. So it's got a whooshing sound, sort of like your heartbeat in your ears. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it is so annoying and so bizarre. And I actually used nausea, which I know is nasal, but that is what really helped my tinnitus to supporting my ears. So there is like a connection with those channels and pathways as well. But you can also do the oleation of the ears and ear massage. And there's actually like mama points and pressure points in your ears that you can use to support ear health as well. Jasmine or anyone else, do you guys have any other practices for the sense of the ears?
Sometimes the bee breath, which we'll learn in the pranayama section, the yoga and pranayama section. So it's a like a humming and a bee breath because there's a vibration and a sound that's associated with that. It's important to understand that your ears sound, the first sound of Om, mantra and chanting. Like that is the closest thing. They say the quickest way to reach God or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it is actually through sound and mantra. So and if there is something going on in the mind that you can't control, like there's some kind of like something beyond you, mantra actually works on a vibrational level. So the ears become really important, that listening becomes really important, but the be breath and also just understanding the connection of sound to spirit because it's connected to the ether element.
Amazing, thank you. It sounds like I've been doing that intuitively then. Because I choose the bee breath. Yeah, I've chosen that recently because I just found that I'm really overstimulated with my ears at this present time. And so I've been chanting mantra a lot and I've been doing the bee breath a lot. But yes, I was just really curious about the other practices, and that oleation is really cool. I didn't know that, yeah, that was a thing. So thanks, ladies.
Welcome. And Shayla said that she's been rubbing sesame oil on her ears as well. And she has a hand up. So do you have something to say, Shayla?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Um, for me, like in regards to the philosophy, like I was talking to a friend and telling her that I've like started studying Ayurveda, and she's like, it's never quite resonated with me. It's a bit too like woo-woo and whatnot. And I guess for me, I'm in this like trying to, when people ask me, I'm finding it really hard to best articulate in words how to, help it to be more understandable to everyone, because I think if you can describe it in the right way to everyone, a lot of people would be interested and benefit from. But I think, yeah, it's just because it's so important to understand the philosophy. And I guess I'm like, is it for people to work with you in it? Do they need to like going into like that world view, like do they need to at least have a, I don't know the right way to put it, but like, yeah, understand the idea that we are spirit and matter. And if they can't understand that, or that's not in there.
I think with like Ayurveda, in its simplest form, it's the science of life, which is the meaning of the word Ayurveda itself. And so we are going deep into the philosophy and all of the understandings of it, but Ayurveda always meets people where they're at. So if they're not at that understanding, and it is like, we are doing hours on just the start of philosophy, and we're all going to be either consultants or practitioners. So you can see how big this topic and how deep it really is. And so we can't ever expect that our clients are going to understand it to the level that we understand it, or even have an interest in the philosophy, even though we know it's the foundation. So we can certainly just meet people with where they're at. And it's like yoga, for instance. A lot of people come to yoga because they want the flexibility, or they might go to a vinyasa class because they see it as another form of exercise. And then after practicing and doing it for a while, they realize there's something more to it. There is that philosophy side of it, there is the spiritual side, and there is the real side of it, which is that union and the philosophy that we've been learning. And it's the same for Ayurveda. Like I often explain it as a health science. It is, I say it's an art and a science, or a philosophy and a science. I'll often say that it's the original, like it's the original form of medicine and naturopathy. It comes from India. It's over 5,000 years old, just like Chinese medicine. I think sometimes when you say, and you can compare it to Chinese medicine and acupuncture, people will go, oh, okay, but it's from India, and they sort of understand that it's a form of traditional Eastern medicine. And that is because I think what TCM has done, Chinese medicine, is they've done very well somehow in keeping it in mainstream. And they've got it in universities, and it's governed by APRA, which is our legal governance here in Australia for health sciences and stuff. So I've studied both, and I can tell you now that I feel that TCM is a whole lot woo-woo and acupuncture. And I was so surprised at how it is so much more mainstream than Ayurveda in sort of the West, and Westerners and Western doctors recommend it. And I think the only reason they do is there's been also so much money poured into the scientific evidence, those studies. It's really hard to pour money into studies unless it's herbology, so unless it's herbal medicine, because you can give a placebo and you can give like a herbal medicine and then a placebo. But you can't really give a placebo with a lifestyle medicine, or a like a body therapy medicine and all these things that Ayurveda does, because you're either doing it or you're not. And so you can only go off clinical case studies, and there are thousands of clinical case studies proving and showing that this medicine works. And so if they're really interested in the science, you can direct them to clinical case meta-analysis and clinical case studies that have been peer reviewed, because you want something to be peer reviewed for it to be seen as um, worthy, I guess, in like the scientific study world. But the only real sort of way is, yeah, they can go read all this, but it always comes back to that embodiment practice and just allowing them to see the changes for themselves and allowing them to try small things. And that's why we start with offering small things such as dinacharya, such as, I mean, it's not a small thing, but like making little changes with that person. And I think, when we are learning something new and something so powerful and so beautiful and so poetic, yet so scientific as Ayurveda, we want everyone to know and to hear about it and to understand it like we can. But I think that the only way that people are really going to want to learn more and see is by being an example. So we as the practitioners be the example, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? What is this you speak of? And from that, that's where I started. I've had so many different nurses and doctors and that come see me as patients, and they're in the Western medical field. And I think it's just by leading from example and showing the power of it without being having to go into, like, I've never really gone deep into the philosophy with certain clients unless that's what they've wanted. So we always sort of meet them where they're at. That was a bit of a rant, but did I answer the question? Yeah. Awesome. Does anyone have a simple way that they explain Ayurveda in a sentence? Like I usually say, it's just that it's the science of life. Like I said, it's a traditional medicine from ancient India, and it's the original form of naturopathy, because they all know naturopath, I say, but we usually go deeper because we go into individual constitutions. We don't just give protocols based on their presenting disease, such as SIBO or recurrent UTIs. Like we look at the actual constitution of the person, because each treatment will be different. That's sort of how I give it on a basic level. But does anyone have another explanation of how they quickly explain what Ayurveda is?
I'm not sure. I think I missed some of it. So maybe you mentioned it in your explanation. But I also say everything stemmed, like, yeah, it's a science of life, and everything including TCM originates from that. Because a lot of people know Chinese medicine and think it's, more sophisticated, but then I say, well, actually it's derived from Ayurveda, and, yeah.
Yeah.
Just like telling people that everything really stems from it, when you look into the history of many things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's definitely becoming more mainstream and more understood by other people. Especially now some of like the stars have used it. So you have got, I think I gave the examples of
Well, I can hear you talking now.
oh, Andrea, your mic's, I'll just um like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they use it, I think, after the loss of, they had a miscarriage. There's Kourtney Kardashian and her partner she's got now used it to conceive. And a chick from Maths, one of the Australian TV shows, she used it, saw an Ayurvedic doctor to support her PMDD, and they've been quite vocal about the support that Ayurveda's given them. So I think it is becoming a lot more understood and mainstream, that's for sure. But it is also exciting because we're on the forefront, which is great for us.
Yeah, and things like the Wanderlust herbs, you know, the Ayurvedic herbs are being used more and more. And even the other day,
Yeah, even in
forget where I was.
Western herbology, naturopaths use our herb, well, not ours, I shouldn't say that, claim it, Ayurvedic herbs a lot, but don't always realize it. So even like Metagenics, MediHerb, all of those really well-renowned brands, they have got a lot of their herbal mixes are actually Ayurvedic herbs. They use the scientific name. So withania, you'll see in a lot of their different herbs, which is ashwagandha. They use saffron a lot. They use andrographis is one of the most well-known Ayurvedic herbs that's sold in Armour Force, which is like always sold out in flu season. Like Ayurvedic herbology is really at the forefront and being used across the West. Heat is just not, oh, that's an Ayurvedic herb. Like people aren't aware of it unless you're in our position. And I think Jasmine's got something to say.
How you explained it, Harmony, I think is perfect. What I want to add on to that is, Shayla, when you're working with clients, you don't even have to share the philosophy with them. Give them their lemon water, give them their dinacharya, give them their lemon water and their tongue scraping and the few practices and their oiling that will change their life. And that in itself will give them the experience of feeling whole again or feeling well again. And that right there is Ayurveda in action. So, yes, you can explain it how Harmony did, and it's like a naturopathic way, and all of that. But it's actually the practices that you will be supporting your clients with that will bring them to understand how this is an embodied practice.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, I'm loving all these questions and these deep thoughts, and I love that people are actually going back and watching the replays who have missed it. So thanks, Danny, and thank you, Shayla, for your question. I know you were here last week. What we're going to do now is get into the content. So let me get set up, unless anyone else has any questions while I'm setting up. Jasmine can answer them for me. Portion of screen. Whoop, there we go. I am going to. I should like jump. Now I've got to move your heads over. Hang on. I need to like work out a way to set this up beforehand. Okay. Can we do the slide? Oh, where'd you just go? Hang on. I clicked something and everything disappeared. What's sharing? No. Hang on.
The line.
Let me try that one again, guys. Talk amongst yourselves, please. Oh, there we go.
You're back.
I'm
Yeah,
back.
it's perfect.
Does that look good? Okay. Amazing. Alrighty. If I slide your heads over onto these slides, can you guys see your heads on the slides?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see mine.
You can see, but you can't see like it's not, can you see the whole slide, or are you guys obstructing the view
I
of?
can see Jasmine, you, and Rebecca and Andrea,
Oh,
but I can't
okay,
see
so
any
you
else.
okay, you can see all the
Yeah.
heads. Okay. It's just when I'm looking, so when they watch the replay, I'm looking at you guys wherever I slide you two. But when people watch the replay, it probably looks like I'm looking off screen, but that's okay. All right. So we are into our final part of philosophy today. And as always, we are going to start with, hang on a minute. Okay, we're going to start with our mantra to honor the divine healers in our hearts. Would anyone love to lead this, or no? Do you like me to?
I'll lead it.
Oh, you lead it. Oh, beautiful. Birthday girl's gonna lead it. We're gonna all count this 7 times. You want everyone to, we'll do it together, and please take your mics off if you feel comfortable.
Yeah. And there's many different ways to chant this. To essentially, as we learn this and integrate this into our being, it's a simple version of Om Danvantra Murtaye Namaha. So just we'll start now, taking a deep breath in, inhaling and exhaling. Om Danvantra Murtaye Namaha. 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 2 more. Om Danvantra Murtaye Namaha. Om Danvantra Murtaye Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine. I think we might have had a little chicken somewhere chanting with us. I feel like, did someone have a chicken?
You said that
There's chickens here.
Love it. I love it.
That's cute.
But I thought I could hear a chicken chanting. That's so cool. So cute. Amazing. All right, so this is just a reminder of what we have gone over. So in the last class, we went over the Shadashanas, but we only went in depth with the Sankhya and the Yoga, which are sort of the main philosophies that Ayurveda and Yoga follow. And so today we're going to go deeper into the 4 remaining ones. So Naya, Visheshkya, Shika, Mimamsa, and Vedanta. So darshanas, it means it's a way of seeing, hence philosophy, right? So the Sanskrit word darshana comes from the root drish, which means to see. So darshana, it literally means a way of seeing more deeply. It's our philosophical viewpoint or lens through which we perceive and interpret reality. And the Vedic sciences follow the 6 Shadashanas. And as I mentioned, this Sankhya and the Yoga, which are the ones that we went more depth in last class, are the main ones that we follow in Ayurveda. But we also do follow these other ones, and we see how they all can complement each other. So just as a reminder, last class we completed the exploration of the 8-fold path of yoga, and we recognized that yoga is more than just a set of practices. It's a comprehensive roadmap to liberation, to moksha. Did you guys go and practice implementing one of the yamas or the niyamas? Remember we spoke about that last time? I asked you guys to put them in the Facebook group. But did we go and practice, and how did we go? Does anyone want to share? No? Did we not do our homework? Oh yeah,
I'm happy to, Harmony. Yeah. I was so focused on practicing, I forgot to put it in the group. I remembered Sunday and I thought, I'm not going to worry now. I'm just going to keep practicing. But the fact that we'd highlighted and I was able to come forward and actually speak, it was
Mhm.
always in my mind for the entire week. So I was continually pulling myself up and moving through how I was feeling. So I'm really, really grateful. And mine was all about self-love and accepting where I currently am at the moment. And when the negative thoughts would creep in, I'd breathe. I'd do my breathing, and I'd think of Callie, actually. I've been reading your book,
Goddess
and
Kali.
Callie, yeah, and Durga, yeah, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
That is embodiment. Like you're doing all the things. I love that so much. So even
yeah,
bringing in the tools of breath work, of calling in on the
yeah,
deities, the goddesses.
yeah.
Amazing. Thank
Mm,
you. Thanks for sharing.
So thank you, thank you.
So welcome. I love it when people start implementing the teachings, and it's just such a powerful way to really understand it, but also to change your life. So well done, Donna. I love that so much. So we also discussed um like when we're walking the path of Ayurveda and yoga, and remember we're not talking about yoga just being the asanas or the breath, but also the intellect, the actions, and that deeper understanding of self with the capital S. So that's sort of where we're all trying to get to through these practices and through the philosophy, is to understand self. And really, once we can truly understand self, that is the path of freedom, of liberation, of moksha. And so this is where the philosophical systems, or the darshanas, become essential companions on this journey that we're all together. And I was thinking the other day, because I say it in my podcast a lot and I say it in my writing a lot, like this journey, or the word journey. I'm like, oh, it's so overused. It's so cliche, but like there's no other word for it, really. You know what I mean? Because the word journey really encompasses everyone's individuality and the path that they're taking to wherever that may lead them. And so if anyone has a better word, let me know. But I've also come to the conclusion that I'm just going to love and own that word as something that I often say, no matter how cliched it is. So we are going to look at the other systems of philosophy. And so there's Nyaya, which is the path of logic and discernment. And then we go into Mimamsa, which is the path of right action, so karma, yoga, and ritual. And then Vedanta, which is the culmination of Indian philosophy, and it's called the end of knowledge. And so this is where that we really look at the aspects of non-duality and of union and of everything coming together for the goal of liberation. So the Nyaya school of philosophy is all about logic and reasoning and analysis, which I think when you first hear that, it's a bit like it almost feels like it doesn't belong in this spiritual beautiful art and science, but it absolutely does, because it offers a systematic way of knowing the truth, one that's really deeply influenced in both Ayurveda and classical yoga. It teaches that truth is not just received, it must be examined and understood using 4 valid means of knowledge. So we're going to explore what those 4 methods of knowing truth is. And the first one is pratyaksha, is the Sanskrit word for direct perception. And this is the knowledge through the 5 senses. So our seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. And when we first got on the call, Danny was talking about honoring her senses through practice, which was really beautiful. And this method is considered the highest form of truth in Ayurveda because experience is undeniable. So, or one of the highest forms of truth. So, for example, if you feel heat, you don't need a theory to confirm it because you feel it. It's your experience. And that is why we always talk about the embodiment path of Ayurveda, to be able to embody these practices and embody the understanding. You know it then. It becomes truth because you're experiencing it in this human form, in this world. The next one is Anuman, an Anumana, which means inference. And this is the reasoning from past experiences, like concluding that there is fire because you see smoke. So if you see smoke out in the distance, you think, oh, there must be a fire. Actually, my son did it yesterday. He thought he saw all this smoke and fire up on the hinterland. And you don't think, oh, is that sea mist when it's in the opposite direction? You think, is that fire? Because past experiences have told us that that means it is fire. And in Ayurveda, we often use inference to understand internal imbalances based on observable signs. And that's why observing your clients is so important, because sometimes we can see things in a different way and see things that the client themselves can't see. The next one is upamana, which is analogy. And this is the understanding that something new by comparing it to something familiar. So for example, understanding the qualities of pitta by comparing it to fire or a hot day. When we talk about the gunas of the elements, we're using those descriptions of those elements, the gunas, to classify a dosha, pitta, for example. So fire is like pitta. Analogy, it helps to bridge abstract concepts like the elements with lived experience. So we can say that if we're eating a spicy meal, like we know that that's going to trigger pitta, right? Or enhance pitta qualities, because it is like fire, and fire with fire will only increase fire. And so that's bringing something that might be abstract when we first start learning these concepts and bring it into the reality of what we know as fire to be. The final one is shabda, which is testimony. And this refers to reliable testimony or expert knowledge, especially that of sages, scriptures, or qualified teachers. In Ayurveda, much of our understanding comes from trusted texts and lineages, most of it, right? So we spoke at the very start of this whole module about the different texts, the different Vedic texts, and we understand that there is different lineage. And first of all, this knowledge was passed down through the oral route because there was no paper and pen and printing and all of that went on. They did scribe in palm leaves and stone, but it was sort of handed down through the oral route. So this philosophy, Naya, it reminds us that truth is not, it's not just like this mystical thing that we talk about. It also has to be logical, experienced, and coherent. And for someone who does have quite a, like I have a very etherical mind and a dreamlike mind, but I also have to know the facts, and I have to have it rooted in like a deep understanding and almost from a scientific point of view. So this is why I love this philosophy, because it helps understand the science of Ayurveda. And that's why when I'm trying to explain it, I say Ayurveda is a science, but it's an art, and it's a medicine, and it's a philosophy, and it's all rolled into one because it draws on all of these different philosophies that we're learning about. So when we think of it in the forms of healing, it means that blending personal experience with clinical observation and scripture and wisdom, it helps us to really arrive at a clear understanding, arrive at clarity. So does anyone have, before we move on to the next philosophy, does anyone have any questions or wanted to add any insights on that one before we move on, the Naya philosophy? No, we're all good. I can't see everyone because I've popped everyone's heads down. Okay, well, we'll move on to Mimamsa, which is karma yoga. It focuses on right action and the power of ritual to lead us towards, where do they all lead us to? Yell it out, people. You're muted, but I could read your lips, Donnie. You said moksha. Yes, that's right, liberation. And it's taught through, this one specifically is taught through karma yoga, which is the selfless service and disciplined practice. This is saying that when we can eradicate accumulated karma, we move closer to truth, to liberation. Mimamsa emphasizes that enlightenment is not just a result of insight, but also of consistent dharmic action. Dharmic action. Can anyone explain what dharmic action might mean?
Purposeful, like
Yeah, beautiful. Purposeful action. Exactly. And we can do that through rituals, meditations, and service done with the right integrity and that a pure mind, and the way that we, apply this dharmic action will help shape our soul's journey. The school of Mimamsa also gives us a nuanced understanding of the soul in two aspects. So it talks of Paramatman, which is the higher self, eternal and unchanging, directly connected to Purusha. And do we remember what Purusha is? Purusha, pure consciousness. And then the second understanding of the soul is Jivatman, and this is the individual soul, tied to the body, personality, and the karmic world of cause and effect. Mimamsa teaches that the spiritual path is the merging of these two, where Jivatman gradually evolves through action and awareness until it recognizes its oneness with consciousness, Purusha, Paramatman. And so by living ethically, serving others, practicing rituals with devotion and meditating, we begin to dissolve the illusions of separateness and align with our divine nature. And it's just got me thinking, because I actually wrote an email yesterday, scheduled today, about this, but it went over my mind that I was even talking about Mimamsa. I was talking about triathlons and like how Ayurveda changed my perception on it. But really, we learn all this stuff and we think, how are we going to apply this in life, apply philosophy? And then years later, you're doing something and it's just this inner knowing. It's a knowing of these philosophies, these truths that we have learned, that we have been taught through these Vedic scripts. Christina, got your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question regarding the first point in this. What do they mean by a path of eradicating karma?
Yeah, so karma, which we will be getting into in a few slides, but karma is, we often think it is bad, like karma is bad, because if we do something bad, then something bad will happen to us. We all have karma in our lifetimes, and our karma evolves when we start to eradicate the path by implementing these teachings and the Ayurvedic principles. We can have karma from our action. We can have karma that is, it's not seen as bad as good, but it's seen as a lesson. So we can have more positive influenced karma or more negatively influenced karma depending on the action that we have produced. And so the path is to eradicate the more negative karma so that our soul can evolve to the next level, to the next step. Does that
So
make
it's
sense?
more saying kind of like improving, because I see karma as a cause and effect, just simply put.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're more talking about like taking a path that would create more where the cause and effect would be more of in a positive way or a way towards enlightenment or growth.
Yes, that, and the certain philosophies see that we carry our karmas to one life to the next. And so the point of evolving, the point of each life is to evolve closer to that moksha and to that liberation, which is like why I said I don't think I'm going to completely get to liberation in this lifetime. There's probably too much karmic influence that needs to be eradicated before you can get to that full pure state. That's one school of thought in these philosophies. So it is exactly what you said, but also looking at not just in this last lifetime, but the next, because
Okay,
that's
thank you.
the belief of some of the philosophies that are taught.
Okay, that makes
And
sense.
Jasmine, I think's got a good explanation because she's got a hand up for you.
Service, so seva, the act of selfless service becomes a big part of karma yoga. So a lot of the times the monks, not even just the monks, but like will literally just be of service and feeding people and being of service and providing that level of I guess giving without anything, wanting in return allows you to eradicate certain, in this philosophy, allows you to eradicate certain karmas that you have come into the world with. And so a lot of times people will understand that those karmas are there and go into a place of high level service to really work through those karmas. So it's not about doing it for the ego, and it's everything about doing it in service and love for someone else.
Beautiful. So I guess this philosophy, it supports the idea that healing is not just physical. If we're looking at it from like an Ayurvedic perspective, it's also karmic and spiritual. There's so many layers to who we think we are, who we are in this present world. And so now we arrive at the final and most subtle of the 6 darshanas, which is Vedanta. And that means the end of the Vedas. It represents the culmination of all Vedic wisdom and is closely aligned with Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge and self-inquiry. Vedanta teaches that liberation doesn't come through effort alone, but through direct realization of the self, by seeing clearly what is real and what is illusion. It sharpens the blade of discernment, allowing us to cut through Maya, according to Ayurveda. And Maya is the illusion of separation, its ego and form. The most well-known school of Vedanta is Advaita Vedanta, and it's taught by Sri Shankar Acharya. the Sanskrit word Advaita means non-dual. So it teaches that there is only one true reality, which is Purusha or Paramatman, the eternal, unchanging consciousness. Therefore, everything else, the body, the world, our thoughts, our identities, is Maya, a projection created by ignorance, which is Adiva. When we awaken to this truth, we realize that there is no separation between the individual soul and the divine. There is only oneness. This perspective is deeply connected to samadhi, which is the final limb of yoga. Remember, we spoke about Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and we looked at the yamas, the niyamas, and all of the eightfold limbs of yoga. And finally, we came to samadhi. So this is also the aim of Ayurveda, not just to heal the body, but to free the soul from illusion and return to its source. Vedanta, it invites us to go beyond all doing, to simply be what we already are, which is pure awareness, unbounded, and eternal. So, looking more at the concept of non-dualistic, Vedanta, especially in its Advaita, which is non-dual form, prevents a really profound shift in how we see ourselves and the world. Because at its core, Vedanta teaches us that there is no separation between ourselves and the divine, or if you want to, you can use the word God as well. And that separation is the result of illusion, Maya. Everything and everyone we see is not part of God or the divine. They are the divine. The world with all its forms and dharma is a play of consciousness. It's a projection, like a dream. And this illusion is necessary for our experience, but it's not the ultimate truth, because this philosophy teaches that that is all illusion. It's seen through, what do you call this? Seen through like a film. It's Maya. And so self-realization in Vedanta means awakening to two essential truths. And that is that the world is not as it appears. It is impermanent, it's ever-changing, and ultimately unreal. And that we are not separate beings seeking God or divine. We are that divine presence, already whole and complete. It doesn't just say that we are connected to a greater whole. It says that we are the whole. The perception of being just a part of it is an illusion. And so this is the ultimate teaching of Vedanta, that when the veil of illusions lift, what remains is pure awareness, non-dual reality, and freedom beyond all suffering. Does anyone have anything to add to that? I'm just checking the chats because I haven't checked any questions in here.
I think it can be confusing because we're looking at all of the philosophies. So it's like, okay, which one is Ayurveda? And so you might have that question. And they have formed on top of themselves. So this is like a timeline of evolution and different schools of thought. You're either of a non-dual school of thought or a dualistic school of thought. Both, not one is wrong or right because they're all one of themselves, which is really non-dual. But it's a very beautiful way to understand how that idea of separation is something that we have to continually come back to in remembering the wholeness goal of Ayurveda. So that's where this philosophy really comes in. But we want to understand how Samkhya works because it lets us know the nature of the manifest physical world. So you can almost look at Sankhya as the explanation of the earth and the Vedanta and the Advaita Vedanta as the explanation of spirit in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, yeah, we pull from all of the 6 philosophies, which is why we're learning all of these. And so exactly like Jasmine said, like Sankhya gives us practical tools and how nature works, how imbalance happens, and how healing is like possible through this. And Vedanta gives us that the highest sort of spiritual teaching, saying that it's only one and realizing this truth is the end to all suffering. And through the path of Ayurveda and yoga, ultimately, this is where we're going to. So I guess when we looked at Sankhya, it was, you spoke of dualism, and Vedanta speaks of non-dualism. And this is why I love philosophy so much, because we get to understand all different schools of thought. And what I guess the most interesting thing for me with the Vedic philosophies is that they all lead to the same conclusion anyway. It's just the way that we want to think about things, and I guess where we're at on our path as well. And so to really subscribe to Vedanta philosophy can be I find quite challenging, because you're sitting here, you're looking around, we're all different people on Zoom on different parts of the world. And it's like, well, how are we all the same thing? How are we all one? And so I find that this is like this endpoint where we're all sort of getting to, but our thought and the way that our mental and our mind patterns work is so interesting when we look at it from these different aspects. And so I guess if we break it down, Sankhya, it's really used as the framework for Ayurveda and yoga. It's dualistic, so it focuses on understanding the mechanisms of the universe and the 24 tattvas that we had learnt about in the last lectures. And it looks at liberation. It's discriminating Purusha from Prakriti, because it says that Purusha and Prakriti are 2 eternal truths. And then the Vedantas looks at a non-dualistic, and it's used for self-inquiry and liberation, and it focuses on realizing that the universe is ultimately an illusion. And so liberation comes from knowing Purusha and the divine are one. It's all one, and everything else is illusion. And so sometimes it can be hard to get your head around all of that. Did I read that one on that slide? Yes. We did go over that last slide, or did we just go on a rant?
You spoke about it.
I did speak. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what am I up to now?
You weren't just ranting.
Okay.
Didn't read it, but you spoke about it.
Okay, good. All right, so we are on the next one. Okay, so this slide outlines the essential qualities that prepare the seeker, us, for the journey towards liberation, towards moksha. Vivek is discrimination. So these are the key principles. So Vivek, discrimination. This is the ability to discern between what is real and what is illusion. So what is eternal, Purusha, and what is temporary, Prakriti. Vivek is the first gate to wisdom. Without it, we remain entangled in appearances. So when we're preparing for this path, we really need to be able to discern eternal and temporary, truth from illusion. And then we need to work on non-attachment, viragya. And it doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means developing a healthy detachment from the highs and lows of our worldly experience. Because ultimately, when we become too attached to either, that leads to suffering. And these pathways are trying to free us from suffering. So to prepare for this pathway, we need to work on ways that we can experience and we can implement the idea of non-attachment. It frees us from clinging, and when we're free from that, it allows the soul to rise above distractions, because anything we are attached to becomes a distraction. The next principle is mamukshutva, which is desire for liberation. And this is the burning inner longing to be free, not just from suffering, but from the cycle of illusion and ego. It's the soul's deep call to return home to its true nature. So I guess this is really what's really keeping you on the path. You know, maybe this might be a silly example, but in business, when you aligning your dharmic path with your business, we always say, like, really understand your why. Because when you understand your why, you're going to go through all the speed bumps, through all of the hard times, because you have a bigger dharma, bigger purpose, a bigger understanding of what your why is. And this is also applicable to this pathway, because if you have that desire for that liberation of the soul, that's your why, because that's the ultimate, the end goal. So to walk this path, it says these qualities must be supported by a tranquil mind, which is shama, self-restraint, renunciation of false identity, endurance through challenges. Sanskrit word is titiksha. And faith in the teachings and self. And we spoke of this word, I think, last class or the class before, but shraddha. Faith in the teachings and self. And having a focused meditative mind, samadhana. When you start to cultivate these skills, you can really work through the practices needed and look at reflecting on those practices. And you're supported by a bigger guidance, because you're supported by these philosophies. So whether you're maybe if you identify or not as a yogi, which we spoke about last week, or a healer, an Ayurvedic consultant practitioner, or even just like a seeker of this practice, these qualities, they create the inner stability that allows this transformation to unfold. So this is what we need to look at when we are on, at the very start of, here's this word, journey again, because this is the preparation for this path that we are walking, that we've already stepped into. And so these are the things that we need to start working on now, if not already. So I would love for you guys to be even more proactive than last week and think about one of these things and write in the Facebook group how you're going to embody this preparation for your pathway. And the path to self-realization in Vedanta, it's not just philosophical, but it's a deeply practical and personal application, which is why we always bang on about really embodying these practices and this knowledge. So this slide here, it presents the fourfold path that prepares and empowers the seeker to awaken to their true nature. And I love, before Donna, you were speaking of accepting where you're at, and this is santosha. This is being contentment. And it doesn't mean that you accept where you're at and then don't accept to grow and to move through this process, but it just means accepting the present. This is where you're at, and then you can take the action to where you need to go. So this is cultivating that inner satisfaction regardless of external circumstances. And this is really the foundation of peace. In Vedanta, this detachment from desire, it really helps to quiet the mind, making it ready for deep insight from all of these teachings that we are learning. The next step is satsang. And I really like to think of these as satsang. And so even when these classes, when we've gone through the curriculum, and we might eventually one day go more to classes where it really is just a satsang, and that is the company of the wise. It's being in the present, physically or spiritually, of teachers and scriptures or fellow seekers. This is what we're doing here. And it really helps the mind focus in on truth. Being in a satsang, and I don't know, has anyone ever sort of been to a retreat where they've sort of said, let's all sit in a satsang? Yeah, Jasmine has. I'm sure you all probably have, but you may not have had the Sanskrit terminology for it back then. But when we do, it really nurtures inspiration and clarity and accountability. And that's why we're learning these beautiful, Vedic sciences and philosophies, and why I'm asking you to take the wisdom and then to put it in our online satsang community, which is the Facebook group, and write in there how you're going to apply these. Because when we sit in satsang, whether it be in our modern world, meaning that satsang is online, whether it be in circle, it helps to create that accountability to the practice. Next, we have Atma Vicharya, which is self-inquiry. And this is the core practice of Vedanta. Asking the question, like, who am I? And remember, our very first class, it was, we asked those big questions, and we really got deep into understanding that sense of self and who am I? What are we here to do? And really meditating on the nature of the self, it helps to dissolve layers of ignorance and illusion. And so this is, part of the pathway of breaking down that illusion. Through this inquiry, we come to see that we're not just the body or the mind or the ego, but the unchanging eternal awareness itself. And the fourth aspect is shanti, which is peace of mind. Understanding truth and true realization of self, it cannot be drawn in from a chaotic mind. So peace is both the path and the fruit of this spiritual practice. Yeah. It allows the inner self to be revealed without effort. Together, these four guide us the seeker, the practitioner, whoever is learning this, toward direct knowledge of the self with the big S as divine. Through Atma Vicharya, supported by contentment, so santosha, wise company through satsang, and inner peace, the veil of ignorance is lifted and we awaken to our eternal, non-dual nature. And this is the essence of Vedanta and the ultimate aim of both yoga and Ayurveda. It's the aim of all philosophies. Like I said before, it's like what's interesting is they all come to the same conclusion. It's to live from the truth of who we really are. But, and there's always a but, but as we do walk this path towards moksha or liberation, the ancient sages tell us that we must first face and overcome the 5 afflictions known as kleshas. These are core obstacles that will cloud our awareness and keep us trapped in the cycle of suffering, samsara. So let's break each of these down. But before I move on, does anyone have any insights or questions before I go on to the 5 afflictions or the kleshas? Are we all letting this resonate? I know it might be a lot to take in to start with, but are we allowing this this wisdom to seep into our souls, into our soul and into ourselves? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So these, yeah. Yeah. Do you have something, Jasmine, to say? Or were you just saying yeah?
I think that was someone else going to say something. No.
I,
I was just going to say it's not about perfection, guys, because it can be overwhelming seeing that list of things that like it's really about walking the path. So like even though it's like, oh, who am I to be liberated? Who am I to be enlightened? Gosh, some days we don't feel like we have enough peace. Like that does not matter. It's about having the awareness and being on the path, and it's not about perfection. So even if you do one small action, and this is what we do with our clients, we give them one small action to start with and then let that roll. So don't feel like you have to do it all at once. Choose a small thing and let that be part of your daily practice. And I just want to say that because I think sometimes you see that list and it's like, oh, like, how can I be an Ayurvedic practitioner if I don't do all of these things? No, that's not the point at all. The point is that we're on the path. And that's all I want to say.
absolutely. And then I think when you start surrounding yourself with people who are all on the path, you realize that we're all far from perfection. And that's why it's called a journey. And so we do come talking of perfection. These are the 5 afflictions and the kleshas that to even get anywhere close to what we might have an idea of perfection is that we need to move through these, and these will come up for all of us at some stage, or have come up for us at some stage. And so looking at the first one, which is avidya, or ignorance, and this is the root of affliction. So it's the failure to perceive reality as it is. We believe the temporary is eternal, and we get so stuck in that, and the body is the self, yeah, and illusion is truth. This mistaken identity is the seed of all suffering, because we fail to see beyond the illusion. And then we have asmita, which is egoism. And here we mistake the ego or personality for our true self. the self that we spoke of with a capital S as opposed to the little s. We identify with our roles, our achievements, our stories, and forgetting our nature as pure consciousness. I think this is really apparent in some cultures where, or a lot of cultures, when you meet someone for the first time, the first thing that you usually ask, or they usually offer, the information they offer and say is like what they do. You know, they identify straight away with their role, and they think that, you know, you as the person interested in them is also going to understand them better if you identify them through a role that has been given to them in our society. Have you ever, like, you know, gone to a party or something, and you're meeting people and you go, oh, hi, I'm blah blah, and the next question usually follows is, and what do you do? Because it gives us a way to connect, because we all do something in some form, I guess. But again, that's really sort of learning to understand someone not on that deeper level, which I know you're not going to sort of go straight into depth with someone but at a party, but it's just giving that example of how we are already as a society caught up in this way. Does anyone have anything to say on that? Any insights on egoism? No. Okay, so the next cliche is raga, which is attachment. And this is saying that we become attached to people, things, and experiences, and we believe they complete or define us. This then creates craving, fear of loss, and emotional instability, because when we're attached to something, whether it be like a material thing or a person, when that material thing or that person is no longer there, it creates a great sense of deep loss, of grief. And therefore, knowing that, we can have a great fear of loss. And I must admit, like, I know that this is one of my cliches. Like, if I think of losing my loved ones, I have a deep sense of fear of loss, a fear of having to go on in this manifest world without them. And so that's something that I'm always aware of and trying to work on, because it definitely is an affliction for me. And the next one is Risha, which is hatred or aversion. And this says that when we encounter discomfort, opposition, or difference, we resist or reject it. I feel like there is so much of this going on in the world right now. Like, if you turn on any social media channel or news, we can see that there is opposing thoughts. There is a difference in the way people view things. And instead of being able to discuss it, it is turning into complete hatred and resistance. And yeah, a lot of this, I feel, is really apparent right now. And so this affliction is definitely, I would say, wide world. I would also say that this aversion is simply another form of attachment. It's the wanting of reality to be different than what it is. And it's also attachment to your beliefs and thoughts. And then finally, we have clinging to life. And so this is the deep fear of death. It's rooted in the belief that we are the body. And so if we only see ourselves as this physical manifest vessel, this body, then we are going to have a deep fear of it coming to its completion. in Ayurveda, this clinging is also seen as a cause of physical disease. It disrupts the balance of prana and the doshas. To obtain moksha, we must see through these afflictions by cultivating wisdom, detachment, self-inquiry, and surrender. And these things aren't easy to do. They sound wonderful and sound easy, and they probably might feel like it could be very easy when we're sitting in this beautiful room with the beautiful energy of people and learning about these 5 afflictions and these cliches. But it's really when we leave these satsangs, these circles, that they will come up. And this is where Ayurveda, yoga, and Vedanta give us the tools to face and dissolve these cliches, not by suppressing them, but by shining the light of awareness through them. Like Jasmine said before, like the first step of everything and anything is awareness. And when you're so aware, and then you start embodying and implementing the many tools that Ayurveda has, we see right through them until only the self remains, the self with the big S, until we understand that, until we see that, until we know that as truth. At the heart of Vedic and Vedantic teachings lies the Mahavakyas, which is the great statements. And this summarizes the highest wisdom of non-dual realizations. These statements are like a tool, really. So they are supposed to be meditated upon. They're supposed to be lived and realized as direct experience of the truth. So let's explore the 3 that we have here. Tat Tram Asi, thou are that. I'm going to hand it over to you guys. Can anyone come up with what they interpret this to mean? There's no right or wrong, and this is a safe satsang, a safe space. So I would love for someone to be brave and come forward and share what they believe Tat Tvam Asi may mean to them. Thou art that. Christina?
Oh,
You can go, Danny.
I was just going to say that I would, not knowing what this actually is, but I would interpret it as like, I am that, as I am everything. I am that which is all.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. The teaching is that you are not separate from divine. Is saying that the same consciousness that created the universe is within you. And so the goal is not to become divine, it is to realize that you already are. Yeah, perfect. I love that. Thank you for being brave and stepping forward, because, yeah, amazing. And it also gets us, when we like share in this satsang, in these classes, it also gets us to think deeper than just listening and absorbing the information. It really gets us to think deeper and activate, our heart and the way that we feel about these teachings. Christina, did you want to speak on the second one? Aham Brahmasmi, I am divine.
To me, it is a lot the same as thou art that, but like you were pointing out, is that there's different ways to explain or different pathways to get to the same idea. To me, both of these statements are non-dualistic. So just pointing to the everyone and everything is divine, and thinking about ourselves in terms of non-separation and what that means.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, we mentioned that these are tools and they're to be meditated upon. So if we were to meditate upon I am divine, this is a direct affirmation of the self, and it's not arrogance. It is truth beyond ego, right? And so when we can meditate on I am divine, the illusion of separateness dissolves. So this is one of the tools to help us get to that place of moving through that illusion. And then what remains is pure awareness, is Purusha, is divine, is Brahman. There's so many different words that, we use interchangeably for this. But what it really is it's your true nature. So good. And then we have neti neti, not this, not that. Would anyone like to have a go at interpreting this statement from their own understanding? I can't see any, like everyone on my view, because if I open everyone's, it'll come into the screen. So just either put your hand up or unblock if you want. Donna, yeah, you want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
not this, not that, not wrong, not right.
Yeah, I
All is
like.
one. All is one. So all is one. So if you have, and this is actually a question, if you have a situation where you have a disagreement with someone, you're pretty much arguing with yourself. Yeah, no? Is it
Yeah,
just my mind?
yeah. We'll speak more on that.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Arguing with yourself when you're disagreeing with someone?
Yeah, well, I actually think it is, because when you get back to not this, not that, you're generally having a disagreement with someone. It's a matter of opinion. They may be doing something that doesn't align with you. It may not serve their health. It may not serve um, their job, their family, but ultimately they're making their choice. So, but if you just separate from the whole not wrong, not right, and it is all okay, it just
Yeah.
kind of smooths over and it's not an issue. Nothing's an issue, more or less.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's healthy and normal to have different opinions. I mean, even looking at these six philosophies, there's differences in these philosophies. I mean, there's non-dualism and there's dualism, right?
Yeah,
So I think it's healthy and we're able to have these different opinions. It's the way that we discern and the way that we articulate and the way that we move through those, and to know that there's ultimately only one truth. And everyone is going to be at completely different places on their path to getting to that one truth.
yeah,
Okay. And so, yeah, what you're saying is sort of not being attached to them not having the same belief as you, which is a really good place to be, because that also leads to deeper conversations when we do have differing thoughts, and also can help us learn from other people as well
yeah,
and see things differently.
definitely.
Yeah,
I
so
think it means
yeah,
I think it means that even if you're having a disagreement or not aligned with someone else's opinion, it's their opinion that suits their world. It's not designed to suit your world. It's their
yeah,
world, their life. It works for them. Doesn't mean that it's going to work for you because you've got your world and your life.
yeah.
Perfect. Well done. Yeah.
And it also comes back to, that statement that
Thank
two
you.
truths can be true at the same time.
Yeah.
And again, we're looking at that through this. I mean, also there can be it can be a fact that you might have this higher awareness through these teachings, and maybe that person is doing some things that is harmful to their health or to their path. But if they're not ready to change or to accept or to hear, it's not always your place to tell.
No.
So
Not your world.
No, it's not.
no,
Yeah.
so you can
And that,
meditate on neti neti.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I
and really the understanding of neti neti from the Vedic perspective, not this, not that, it's really a method of self-inquiry. So recognizing that we're not body, we're not mind, we're not emotions, we're not even our thoughts. When we can realize that, we gradually peel away the illusion until only the self remains. And that's the concept of all of these things. So again, there can be two truths that are true at the same time, a different way of seeing things, as long as we know the ultimate truth, and that's where all things lead to. And so it's not a path of negotiation that leads to the ultimate affirmation. It's just pure being. Yeah, Danny?
was just going to say on this as well, like what I've really learned and discovered through my own experience is that like if you take it to a level deeper, in terms of like when Donna said about the argument, like is that something like that I see that as an opportunity to then say, okay, well, what is it within me that then thinks that they're wrong? And then that takes me down into a deeper, more self-inquiry to then ask, well, why do I feel that my way is the right way? And then coming back down and seeing their perspective under the knowledge that they have been programmed from childhood with all these different experiences and karmas that have shaped their perception of the world, the goggles or the lenses that they see the world through. And then therefore they've arrived at that decision or that perspective, and they're willing to fight for it because it comes from that egoic place where I'm right. And then that brings us into a state where we can then, instead of being like, no, I'm right and no, you're wrong or blah, 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 you can then open that conversation up for a deeper understanding where it's like, okay, so where did that arise? Like, where did that come from? And then you open up that container of communication where you can bring in compassion and understanding, and you can get
Passion is the
around.
key.
Yeah, and you can then
Sorry,
dance
Danny. Yeah.
around
Yeah.
what that means, and then arrive at, you don't have to arrive at, oh yeah, I see your way now, but each person can have their own understanding or belief or view, perception of whatever that is, but that going deeper into that conversation to really understand and listen with compassion can really allow that person there to know that they're safe in their worldview, even though that might not be serving towards yourself or you may not agree, but then they get that validation for themselves that, because I feel sometimes when we argue, it's always, oh, it's because I think I'm right, or like, no, that's not right. And then it's like, well, what is right? Like, and really it's just at a deeper level, I feel like it's just it's a wound of not being heard or seen, and then therefore you feel like you have to fight for your perception when really we can invite a deeper conversation.
Yeah.
To have compassion. And
then
it
brings
can
it back
all
to
dissolve. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jenny?
And I think it just comes to the point, like, their truth might not be your truth might not be their truth, but ultimately there is only that sort of one bigger truth. And I wrote about this in my book, actually, because I held a lot of resentment towards my mum for a really long time because she became an alcoholic. And when I was younger, I sort of saw it as like, you're drinking, like, why aren't I good enough just to be around? Why do you have to be drinking type thing? And I made that up in my head. That was my truth, and I felt that at the time. And I continued to remember to feel that as an adult. But when I did a lot of this work and through Ayurvedic psychology and sort of understanding all this, I was like, I came to this realization once. I'm like, hang on, my truth ain't her truth. In her mind, she was a doctor, she had all this stuff going on. Her truth was she loved us. She loved her kids. She would do anything for her kids. It wasn't about that at all. And so I realized my truth is not her truth, and her truth was not my truth in that situation. The only truth is the unity of all, and that we are all divine in our being. And so whether she was drinking or not, like that was, you know, mistakenly took over by her ego self and doing those things. But she's divine, and I'm divine, and that is ultimately the truth. Our perceptions were different, but we mask them as our truths. And so I think it's a really beautiful reflection, these statements, because they're really the essence of Vendetta, and they point directly to the truth of who we are, and that when they are truly realized, they liberate us. Because I think even through this conversation, we've all had a breakthrough, and, you know, a bit of a slice of what liberation and moksha really is. And when we see that, and we can feel that, and we can know that, then that releases us from this cycle of suffering that we often put ourselves in. And it helps us to return to our natural state of oneness, of peace, of joy. And so looking at karma, which I knew was coming up, Christina, I didn't realize it was going to be this far down. But we only actually have a couple of slides left, and I'm going to go on to karma. Do you guys, I always forget to give you guys a break, and I know they're longer classes. Does anyone want 5 minutes to get a cup of tea, or are you happy to keep rolling? What's the consensus? Oh, Helena's here. Look, Helena, I remembered to give the students a break. I'm a bit too late. We're about to finish, but anyway, better late than never.
I'm happy
Happy
to
to
keep
keep
going.
rolling. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
I
get
have
a
to leave
cuppa,
at like
but I can take you
12:30.
with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same. I've got to go at 12:30.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. You guys can go grab a coffee or take me with you, or you do a pee. Just make sure the video's off. Okay. so in the Vedic and Ayurveda worldview, karma is not like punishment or reward. That's sort of how we see it in the West. You know, oh, you got bad karma or you've got good karma. It's like punishment, reward. It is actually non-judgmental. It is spiritual and a physical law of cause and effect, as you mentioned before, Christina. And this is administered by Mahat, which is the universal intelligence, or that cosmic order. Yeah. And so karma simply reflects back to us the results of our actions, which helps us evolve towards truth. So when we spoke on karma earlier, we spoke about the evolution of the self, of who we are in each lifetime. And so our actions will bring about the cosmic law of karma. But what it's doing is it's helping us evolve to this truth that we've been talking about for like the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So when we break it down, in general, we think karma arises from these selfish actions. So choices driven by the ego and senses, such as seeking pleasure or avoiding pain at the expense of deeper wisdom. But we have to remember that there is no good or bad karma. There's only appropriate consequences that reflect the vibrational quality of our actions. Karma teaches us. When we look at it this way, we say, well, it is giving us guidance and lessons. It's not punishing us. Because if we did not have an effect after an action or a cause that we intentionally or even not intentionally did, we wouldn't learn, we wouldn't grow. So karma is there to help us grow and facilitate us on this journey of evolution. On a physical level, if we want to apply the law of karma, we can look at it that healthy actions like a good diet, rest, honesty, compassion, they generate health and vitality. So we do these actions in Ayurveda, like having a dinacharya, eating a sattvic diet, because we want to create and generate this healthy vitality and live in a more of a sattvic state. However, unhealthy actions like overeating, negative speech, neglect can lead to dis-ease. And Ayurveda teaches that all dis-ease begins with imbalance at the level of action. So some sort of action has created dis-ease to occur. But on the spiritual level, when we look at karma, karma can create some skaras. So the spiritual and the mental, the emotional level. And these are mental and emotional impressions or tendencies that influence our behaviors, patterns, and desires. And we dive into this in Ayurvedic psychology as well. These tendencies or these samskaras, they help shape the core of the lessons that we're meant to learn in this lifetime. So really, like, karma is what binds us to that cycle of birth, of death, of rebirth, right? But it also gives us the opportunity to evolve. So if we take the lesson and we learn from the lesson, we evolve. If we don't, then we're going to learn that lesson again. It's going to be presented to us through karma again. And this, I'm not sure the actual name of this teaching, but it's exactly the same way that it's taught in Buddhism as well. Karma. So does anyone, before I go on, does anyone have their understanding of what karma is? Or how it may have been playing out in their life, or what you've heard? Helena?
I like to think about karma as something that it comes back actually from one of the things we discussed in the previous lessons, that is all about our responsibility for everything we do and everything we think and every action we have in this life. So because every action, it includes every thought, has a reaction. But sometimes, as you said today, these karmas can also come from other lives. So can also come for things that we just can't control. And in Ayurveda, a very good example about that is, for example, that recurrent disease, or for example, a kid that has cancer with 1 year old. So it's not something that this child did. It's just something that she's or he's carrying from other lives. So there are the karmic disease, which are the ones that we just can't explain by incorrect diet, incorrect lifestyle, incorrect way of living. And for these kinds of disease, the Vedic astrology can help a lot, but mainly, I would say mainly the pujas. The pujas are the rituals, especially the fire ritual, that is closely related to kind of burn bad karmas that comes from other lives. I'm just sharing you as curiosity, but with these pujas that are very traditional in Ayurveda, we kind of burn these bad karmas when we can't find any other way to to heal or to treat something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just a little story on like karma and these philosophies and how they're integrated into cultures that really embody these philosophies. I remember I was in Bali, it must have been like 10 years ago or so now, and it was in the middle of the night and I heard the biggest, loudest whoosh. And I was like, holy shit. I woke up and I thought we were getting bombed. I was like, we are getting bombed. But everything else was really peaceful. No one seemed to be worried. So it turns out we weren't getting bombed. What it was a huge jet going across us in the middle of the night. And I found out that that jet was taking the Bali 9, the two that were getting executed from Karabokan jail over to the execution jail. And so the next day I was sort of talking about this with my like a Balinese driver who is very much embodied in these philosophies. And I was saying, oh, because it was so long before they first got arrested, and I believed that, or you know, what I'd read, that one of them in particular, or maybe both of the main ones, they had really sort of changed their lives around. They were doing a lot of good for the community in the jail, of course, but they'd really sort of changed. And I was like, oh, it was so long ago. Like, how can they be executed? And like, oh my, like it made me feel really uneasy. And like, they're good people now. Like, isn't that good karma? And he said, well, no, this he just said, oh, he didn't seem phased. He's like, in this lifetime, this is their karma. And they've come through that, and they've learnt through this karma, because they have reformed, I believe too. And in their next life, they're going to be so much more happier. And I was like, oh, wow. And even as I say it now, I've got goosebumps. You know, I still had to, through my mind, had to process that, but it's just a way that karma was really sort of highlighted and explained to me in that situation. And I was like, it's always sort of made me think of that. So their good actions that they had done in jail over the last 10 years is, from this philosophy perspective, supposedly going to give them a different karma in the new life. But this life, they still had to be reverence to the karma that was theirs to dismantle. And
They still had to be responsible for what they did or supposedly did.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it's deep to think about. But we can often see karma can really be distributed in small digestible amounts in each lifetime. Now, I'm not saying that was a digestible amount. That was a huge karmic imprint left on them and their souls. That was huge. But we all have these little digestible amounts in each lifetime. And that allows us to grow at the pace our soul is ready for. And maybe, I don't know, because I'm no guru and I'm no liberated person, but maybe for those drug smugglers that did get executed, maybe that was a huge leap and a huge leap of growth to the next time. Maybe their soul is going to be, you know, was ready for that huge quantum leap of karma. But maybe they didn't reform as much as we thought. And maybe that it's just part of the lesson, and it was a small digestible amount of karma for their lifetime. We don't know. And I guess when we look at it from Ayurveda, we seek not to escape karma, but to consciously align with dharma, which is right action, so that our karma becomes a tool for liberation, not bondage. And maybe those two men actually aligned with their dharma in their last 10 years of life, even though it was behind bars. So I know they made like different jewelry that went to the proceeds went to orphanages and all of these things in there. And I don't know the person. I'm not saying they were good or bad people, but maybe they finally aligned with dharma, which is right action. And that was the point of the process of their karma, their karmic path. Okay, we're nearly there, guys. When I was looking through these slides just before we jumped on, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a quicker one today. I'm feeling it. We're still going to time. So this now brings to the 4 goals of life in Vedic philosophy. Every human life is seen as sacred, not just for survival or enjoyment, but for the evolution of the soul. The sages outlined these 4 goals of life, and they offer a framework for living with meaning, purpose, and spiritual growth. So the first goal, karma, so not karma, there's no R in it. It's not a spelling mistake. It is a different word in karma. When we practice this, when we aim for this with balance, then it is all about having the right pleasure and enjoyment and emotional fulfillment, engaging in beauty and sensory enjoyment. And that includes art and creativity and love and relationships and joy. Ayurveda teaches that karma, when sought with awareness, nourishes the heart and really keeps us vibrant. But of course, if we have an overattachment to this goal, then that will lead to sensory overindulgence. So it's always about having a balanced awareness when we are trying to attain these goals. The second goal is artha, which is prosperity and security. And it refers to the means of life. So that is wealth, that is resources, career stability. And this is the thing, like a lot of Vedic sages back in the day, like money is a new concept, newish, but back in the day, sages were seen as really, really wealthy because they may have been given 100 goats to swap for different things. They were always provided for. People would always have them in their homes, providing shelter, and they were given material possessions for their wisdom. And so this idea of material abundance being unspiritual, of course, if it is taken over that threshold, and that is the pure gold and the gold, the pure goal, and this is led from a place of just for accumulation, greed, or selfishness, then that is not the goal of life. But when it is taken from that balanced perspective, when it's pursued ethically and in balance, it supports your ability to fulfill your dharma and service to others. Because if you're not abundant in it, or you don't feel abundant in a sense, you don't feel comfortable and secure, it's hard to really be aligned with your dharma, because there is often a sense of lack, which leads us to dharma. And dharma is righteousness or purpose. It is right action. It's our gift for serving society. Dharma has a huge, big meaning, which, one day we'll get into as well. But it's really your sacred duty. It's living in alignment with truth. And we have just learned about truth this whole lesson. It's living in alignment with your ethics, your ethical boundaries, your values, and your unique path. It is the foundation of all other goals. In Ayurveda, living according to Dharma creates mental peace and physical harmony. But again, we can take this goal out of what it is supposed to be, so out of the truth of perception, and we might use this dharma, we might say our purpose, and create some sort of job to pursue status or power, or abusing our power. And so this is out of alignment with dharma. This is when our ego is overacting on this goal of dharma, of pursuit of living this right action. And then, of course, the final goal of life is moksha. It's liberation or enlightenment, the ultimate goal of freedom from suffering, from ignorance, and from the cycle of rebirth. It is the realization that we are not the body or the mind, but pure consciousness. And together, whether we're looking through the lens of yoga, Vedanta, Ayurveda, they all work together to support this liberation. These four goals are not in conflict. They are meant to be in balance with each other and integrated. And then when we pursue these with awareness, they lead to a life that is whole, joyful, and spiritually fulfilling. But when one of these becomes out of balance, just like, the elements of the doshas, it will create, when one of them becomes out of balance, then it is tipped from living in, alignment and wholeness, and it's tipped into living through the ego. And according to Ayurveda, a long, healthy, and fulfilling life is supported by 3 essential pillars. So these are the foundational forces that sustain our mind, body, and spirit. And these pillars are proper digestion, ahara, digestion. When we think of digestion, we just think of our agni and our food. And yes, that has a lot to do with it, but it's not just about food. It's also about how we digest and how we process everything that we take in. So food, yes, but also emotions and our experiences. When our digestion is strong, we build ojas, which is the essence of vitality, of immunity. But when it's weak, toxins or armor can accumulate, and that leads to disease. Ayurveda, as we know, places a large emphasis on diet, meal timing, and agni, so our digestive fire, as the cornerstone of health. So our agni, our digestive fire, but we have agni in all of our cells, and it helps us digest all of the things that come through our senses. Proper rest or nidra, this is another pillar of life, and one I think that gets neglected a lot in modern life. This is true rest, and this regenerates not just the body, but also the mind and our nervous system. So deep, regular sleep allows healing to occur. It helps to balance the doshas, and it supports our emotional well-being, especially for women, because sleep disturbance or lack of sleep really creates hormonal imbalances in a lot of women. So without sleep, no amount of food or medicine can fully bring vitality. Like, you could be eating all the right things, you could be popping all the most beautiful supplements, but if you are just not resting and not having adequate sleep for your constitution, then you are not going to feel your best self. And then the third one is proper management of sexual energy, so brahmacharya. And so this is really about respecting and wisely directing your creative life force. It's not necessarily talking about celibacy, but more so conscious moderation and aligned with one's stage of life and their constitution. Ayurveda says that misuse of sexual energy leads to depletion, whereas proper use builds strength, clarity, and spiritual focus. So, with these 3 pillars, when they're managed wisely, Ayurveda teaches that we are assured a long, disease-free, and purposeful life, and they are the daily anchors of life in balance. But I personally, and since the last pages of the Vedas were left blank for new emerging practitioners to have their piece, I feel in here that movement should really be a pillar. So that's just my little 2 cents. because I feel that movement is crucial on so many levels for so many reasons, along with proper digestions of food, thought, and emotions, rest, and management of our sexual energy. But I'm going to say movement as well. However, it's not on the slide because that's just me. Does anyone else have anything to add to those? Or any insights on the 3 pillars of life, according to Ayurveda? No. Well, beautiful. Because we come to the final slide, and that is to wrap this big module up that we've done over the last few weeks, the very purpose of Ayurveda. And that is to keep the body healthy so that we can pursue our spiritual goals. So we've come a full circle to return where we began, with this being the true purpose of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is not simply to cure illness or prolong life, although it does both of these with really great wisdom that we have. But really, the purpose of Ayurveda is to support the body and the mind as sacred vehicles for something greater, the pursuit of our spiritual goals. When the body is balanced, the senses calm, the mind clear, the soul then can remember its purpose and the truth. And we are then able to see through the illusion, Maya. And when we see through illusion, we make wise choices, we serve others, and ultimately realize that true nature of self. And so whilst Ayurveda is a health science, it teaches us that health is not an end in itself. It is a foundation for dharma, devotion, and liberation. It's the path of alignment, not just with nature, but with our own divine essence. So, as all of you beautiful spiritual human beings walk forward in your study with us in the Ayurveda Alchemist Academy and in your life, may you carry this forward. To heal is to return to wholeness. And through wholeness, we awaken the self. Namaste. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we are pretty much on time. Thank you. I know this philosophy it's deep. We learn a lot through it, and it is a big subject, but it is the foundation of Ayurveda, and we need to understand where it's come from. And so I appreciate you all staying on these calls. And sorry, I haven't given you any breaks. I will try to remember that in the future, to break halfway and let you go get a cup of tea and do some stretches. But that is why I say movement is a pillar. We do need to use that movement to stretch, to move the energy. And yeah, you can probably see me moving a lot in my chair. Does anyone have any questions or any insights they want to share before we go? No? Okay, thank you so much. Is there any, we do have, not this weekend, coming next weekend, if you're willing to travel to or near the Gold Coast, we do have the Ayurvedic Breathwork Practitioner certification. So it's 2 days, and you guys get a wonderful discount. So you get $200 off. And we also have the Goddess Day Retreat. You do get a free ticket to that if you've enrolled in this program. You get one free ticket. If you've already been to a previous one, then you will get 50% off that ticket price as well. So you please let us know if you do plan on coming, and use the code so that you can register, and the code will give you free just because we need to know for catering. Amazing. But other than that, I don't think I have any more notifications to speak of. Our next module is, what is it, Helena?
Anatomy and physiology.
Yes, anatomy and physiology. That's coming up next. And Helena will be taking that one next. Is it next week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Both Jasmine and I will be away. So make sure you come. It is very, very important you know your anatomy and physiology to be wonderful Ayurvedic consultants and practitioners. All right, beautiful people. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste. Thanks.
Thank you.